Okay, so we'll move straight to the panel discussion, and like I told you earlier, the panelists are here on ground, and then we have, of course, online too. We have Dr. Pio is online with us. We have Ahmad Sarari. Ahmad Sarari is one of those very strong. I think he's even the vice president of Mopan, national president of Mopan. I mean, that's also very strong. And then we have NBC delegates. We have Dr. Director Jubesti also online. We have a lot online. So it's time to engage the keynote from the Executive Director, National Film Videos and Census Board. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to quickly welcome the panelists and of course hand over the mic to the moderator, our own foremost art editor, Jahman Anikulapo. Please a round of applause for him, the moderator. Please a round of applause for him. He will sit. Would you permit me to invite the panelists, sir? All right, so please, very quickly, in no particular order, we have a veteran actor and teacher, Uncle Norbert Young. Please a round of applause for him as he comes on the podium. Thank you. And then we also have our foremost musician and also, of course, a filmmaker, Nigeria's first female talking drummer on the world stage. Ladies and gentlemen, Ara. Also, we have the executive director of the longest running film festival in Nigeria and one of the pioneers of Directors Guild of Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Fidelis Duka. Please a round of applause for him. And of course, we have online Mr. Victor Okai, who is the president of Directors Guild of Nigeria. He's online, so he will be joining us while online. And then, of course, with us, a human rights lawyer who will be able to explain these 3 days of judgment and 3 days and 5 years of pending judgment, which I believe he's in his capacity would give us an approach to how we'll look at creativity and of course from the legal perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, a human rights lawyer, Barrister Kola Alapinni. Please a round of applause for Barrister Kola Alapinni.
No, I think what I would suggest is that we call Mr. Alapinni from there. He's a customer.
Okay. All right, please, over to you, sir.
Well, thank you very much. Time is fast spent. Thank you very much, the DG, for the keynote. Quite a lot to get from there. And you already linked us even back to what Ayo Gani, the executive producer and the advocacy manager, what they mentioned. How free is free? I think that's the first point. How free is free? And of course, freedom comes with responsibility. That shows up a lot in your statement because the panelists will be responding to some of the things that you have said. And then the UNESCO credo, freedom to imagine, to create, to consume content, free of government censorship, and free of political interference. I'm sure if you take note of that, that runs contrary to some of the things that you have said, even though you gave us a template to why government have to behave the way they behave. But the bottom line is that freedom comes with responsibility. So artists have freedom, but you also have responsibility. And as the super icon, Idi Amin said, what you say here is free. But what happened to you after your free speech? You're on your own. Okay, so let me start with, we have 3 items that we need to deal with. I don't know if you have the program. Okay, we have restriction of political and religious views in audiovisual content. We have prior censorship of film and audiovisual works, and public morality and rules. What I would advise is that each of us should take one. Okay, so let me start with the second one. Prior censorship of film and audiovisual works. Fidelis Duka. The DG already gave us some examples of Nkaki Delay and Co. So do you have some experience you can share with us on that, and how this has affected? Because you are a producer, you are a director, you are a film festival person, you are a manager of the art.
At these constant arguments, I believe that there are two basic words over the years I've found difficult to understand why they still exist in our law books or even in our statutory organizations. One is force, Nigerian police force. I feel the word Nigerian police force came because of the colonial masters. When they were here, they had to use force. The other word is censorship, the National Film and Video Censors Board. We've had that argument. We were in Calabar at a conference together I think last year, and I made that same argument that I will expect at this stage that we'll have even moved from that, departed from that National Film and Video Censors Board to National Film and Classification Board. That's been my argument over the years, and I have a reason for that. You see, you made a point now. You say freedom comes with responsibility, and it's true. When we were watching some of the clips and the advocacy report by Shola Alamotu, a couple of those things there, I felt you cannot call my name and call me a criminal and a liar and a thief when I've not been convicted by a law court. I have every right to sue you, even if you're an artist. But beyond that, too, I also feel that which comes first? Is it the Constitution or the Act? Very contradictory in its essence. Even now, we're having a major issue with the government now, where the Constitution of the issue of public servant and yes, it's a good point. So, if you look at the Act, DG is my very good friend. We've had this argument. The argument he was making there that him, of course, he's one of us, but also in government now. So he has to protect where he works at this point in time to a large extent. That's the truth. You can't deny that fact. It will be very unfair on you to come here and talk against government. That's one. But if we look at the issues on ground now, why I raised these three examples is that at this point, the Constitution allows for freedom of expression, freedom of association. There has been a lingering battle in Nollywood in the last 1 year, and I'm happy he is a very liberal person. He went for their event yesterday, AMCOP. They took him to court. They are in court with him, with the Censors Board, not him personally, the Censors Board, claiming that the Censors Board has no right to make them as members of an association to register with the Censors Board. But within the Act establishing the board, the Act says that for you to present a film, you must belong to a recognized association. So I now begin to ask, is it the Constitution that comes first, or is it the Act? So that conflict has caused a lot of problems. And that's why you keep having the same issues over the years, where we, even as practitioners, our first challenge is I think we've not done enough with advocacy. We start a course and we do not follow it through. I was talking with Anote a few minutes ago when we came in here. I said, look, the national as a theater issue, if not for the wide cry, immediate action, the name has been changed. Forget the story of it wasn't what I meant it this way. It has been changed. But when there was this wide cry by practitioners all over the country, the minister retracted. So what I'm saying in essence is that the basic challenge we face with this issue of censorship and classification is that as filmmaker, I would prefer that it's called the National Film and Video Classification Board, where I have a right to decide the kind of film I want to make, and I have a right to put them out. At that, if the film says 18, it means that a particular platform, even African Magic, cannot show the film in the morning. It shows only in the evening when kids have gone to bed. These are basic things that we must put in our laws. And the lawyer would, of course, will expatiate on that. So, for me, yes, we've had challenges, we've had instances. I remember when I made a film in 1998 called King of Money. You remember the story, Jahman? The years ago story. What was the story? It was basically a fictional story. But because the title of the film coincided with when this man in question called Ezego, what was his name? It was a nickname. His real name is Victor Okafo, but his nickname is Ezego, died at that period. The family felt I had made a film on their son. And what did they do? They ran to the Censors Board, who had not seen the film, and the Censors Board refused to even censor the film in 1998. So that I could not censor the film. When they had not even seen the film, they didn't even want to see the film. Because he had gone there ahead of me, with a letter from the court asking that the film should not be shown in Nigeria. And the board said, but you should see the film first now before you conclude that I'm making a film on this man. So these are the lingering issues when it comes to the board and filmmakers. I think, like he mentioned when he ended with, there's a need for us, like that the team says, the reforms must be participatory. We must be fully involved. Even if the government has their own position, the filmmakers also have a position. Let me just stop there for now.
Okay. Well, yeah, thank you very much. We have to be involved so that we can capture participatory reforms, because that's the whole essence of democracy anyway. Why is it democracy if you cannot be part of the decision that is going on? Norbert Young, you are a practitioner, you're also a teacher. And I have this point here, restriction of political and religious views in audiovisual content. What has been your own experience, and how do you respond to the some of the statements made by the Executive Secretary of Censorship Board?
Good afternoon, everybody. First of all, please do not quote me, because I cannot verify the source of what I'm going to say. When Bill Clinton was the President of America, he watched a movie called Air Force One. And where I read it said his statement was, "May God never let it happen." Air Force One, if you have seen that movie, was a breach in the security of the President of America. And it was independently produced. Government hand was not in it. And Clinton watched it, and I said, please don't quote me, because I cannot verify the source from which I read it. But he said, may God never let it happen. I haven't said that. Let me just give a little political background to this thing. The whole idea of censorship, first of all, I must agree with you, because you do not censor art. You classify art. Please take note, Mr. DG. Anyway, you said you have changed it from censors to classification board, right? Okay. We have made a step in the right... Yeah. Okay. We are making progress in that direction. See, a historical background on this classification and political interference, religious, and all those things started in Elizabethan England in 1554 or 1553. At that point, the actors were seen as lazy people. They were bad influence on society. They did not make people go to church. They were lazy. So the general idea was that such people were bad influences on society. They should be driven to the banks of the River Thames. That was where they established. But you see, it became a disgrace for the nobility to participate in theater processes. As time goes on, as time went on, it spread to other parts of entertainment. Now, while these people were at the River Thames, they devised means of feeding themselves. Prior to this time, theater had always been sponsored by governments of Greece and Rome and other parts. Theater was sponsored by government, so the people didn't need to hustle to make money. But in England, the government refused to sponsor theater. Nobility participated. It was easier at the beginning. But when they now decided that these people were lazy and bad influence, they stopped people from going to church. They were, especially for the women, they say, please leave this society and go and stay, like in Lagos, go and stay by the bar beach. Do whatever nonsense you want to do there. Because for the nobility, it was nonsense. And then, the nobility, because of where they're staying, they didn't want to be associated with this thing. But many of them were writers. Many of them loved theater. So they will write plays and secretly pass it on to these actors who were living at the Thames and tell them to act it for them. And they will give them money to be able to facilitate the production of the play. Now, some of these managers, they call them managers. They manage their companies and their directors. They will write their own plays and go and meet the nobility. Say, please, we want to do our own play. Can you give us small money? And the nobility say, but before I give you money, I must see your script. And they will say, okay, look at the script. That's the beginning of censorship. That's I say, please remove this part. It's not telling well about me. Remove this part. And you know, in France of the year of the revolution in France, 1897, or I can't really remember, what was the France revolution? There is a play called Marriage of Figaro. Marriage of Figaro, written by Alexander Beaumarchais. The play talked about the oppression of the lower class. And it was one of the main contributors to the French Revolution. Yeah. And then we know cases of other plays that had political background that have caused a lot of trouble in the world, in various places. Ngugi wa Thiong'o was constantly in trouble with the Kenyan government. What's his name? Kenyatta. And then our own guys here, Wole Soyinka, had a running battle with government. Chinua Achebe had his own problem, and all those kind of things. But the truth is that at every point in time in history, every entertainment is set against a political background. Every form of entertainment, singing. Fela had his problem with several governments, and Fela called only one man in power a gentleman, and that was Yusuf, the police is MD Yusuf, because that guy, as far back as that time, according to Fela, knew what democracy is. Now, my question, after giving this little background, let us look at certain things. The DG said we need to form associations. I totally agree with that, because at the point in time I was in England and I was going to act something. Somebody saw my face and said, "Man, who are you?" And who said that? A cameraman. He said, "Man, before I shoot you, I must see your equity card." Equity card? He said, "Yeah, if my association will find me if I shoot somebody that I don't know. I don't know you as an actor in this place. But you come, shit, man, I'm not going to shoot." I had to be given an equity card to participate, to do that small thing. You see, that's the power of the associations. And when you have associations, you'll be able to fight your fights. But what the minister and the census board for now have put the cart before the horse. You are asking us to do due diligence. Why don't you do due diligence? You know, like for instance, you say skits, this and that, sometimes something that is not even produced by Nollywood, they say everything is Nollywood. Is BBN also part of Nollywood? Big Brother Nigeria? It's not part of Nollywood. So it is not everything that is blamed on Nollywood. Nollywood, entertainment by itself produces positivity. In the process, there might be some negatives, but at the end of it, there's positivity. That's why sometimes, the last time I said, you must make bad so large that when it falls, the fall is complete, there's total destruction. And then you will see. Then when you see let us, for example, say they are showing a movie right here, and we are all watching the bad guy making money, and this and that. And then when they catch him, you will come and see the relief all of us will express. Oh, thank God they don't catch him. You see, we all know latently in us that evil is not good. Evil will always get its comeuppance, and it will be destroyed. So, and then again, I take these points one by one. UNESCO said the artistic freedom is imagine, create, distribute, and for people to buy into it and enjoy it without political interference and government censorship and other non-stakeholders. But the truth again is this. I want to agree with the DG where he said, like you too, the moderator, and I think Fidelis agrees with you, that your freedom stops where mine starts. And there must be sensitivity to cultural issues. The problem of the agege bread, just recent history, we all saw it. That was pure insensitivity to the people who hold such belief very strongly. It's like telling me you want to sell my father's land where my umbilical cord was buried. I have so much emotional attachment to that place. So you must be very sensitive if you want to sell it. You must talk to me nicely. And I may not even agree. And then some time ago, there was this musical group called Zulezu. They sang a song, Kerewawa. Kerewawa actually is a folk song in Tiv land. Folk song, folklore in Tiv land. But they sang it, and NBC said it was not to be broadcast, and they banned it. So is it right to ban a people's culture? Is it right to subject one culture? Is it? That's the question that the Census Board must look at. Nigeria is a diverse society. Without freedom and without proper advocacy about such things, we will continue to not do the right thing. That's my point for now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Norbert Young, and for taking us back to the fundamentals of this particular thing, because the whole notion of censorship and democracy in one sentence is nebulous. Censorship, democracy. I don't understand it. Maybe as we go on, we will be able to. Well, yeah, because there's a way, you know, there's some of these statements that we've inherited, and we didn't question them. How do you say you want democracy, and then you stop people from talking? It means there's no democracy. So why don't we go to where we're coming from? Military, decree. Because what we're doing now is like militocracy. Military, they're just in charge. And I'm not making reference to the big man in Abuja. I'm just saying that the old mentality is like that. Yes. So, Ara, public morality rules. I know you're also a pastor or a pastoress.
No, I'm not.
Okay. Well, you're a cultural ambassador. Yes, so we talk about public morality rules, yes, in the context of protecting creativity through participatory democracy.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Who says that the creative industry does not influence the society? I would say that we are the greatest influencers of the society by our works, our lyrics, our movies. I make somewhat sound contradictory to the cause of the day, but if we think deeply about it, we would all agree that there needs to be a form of, maybe the word is not censorship, but there must be a form of guidance so people don't go overboard. In my industry, music, my primary industry, music industry, if we look at our lyrics and our musical videos, I do not understand why, sir, your office is not, looking in that direction. Some of these musical videos, given the fact that kids, not just kids, everybody loves music. The likes of my colleagues in the industry are a role model to a lot of these youngsters. Watching their musical videos, their lyrical content, and what they portray in the musical videos, as a matter of fact, is a defining factor and is one of the major reasons, if you ask me, why the youths want to be, if I put it that way. The recent case of the Christian school comes to mind. The role of parenting is critical as a people of culture and tradition. I always say to us that we need to have a sane society. But to have that, the home front must be doing their part. Looking at that incident in retrospect, where would such a girl have learned a few things? Easily, from the top of my head, musical video. Because when you watch a musical video, you see the winding and grinding, the nudity, even the lyrics, the gangsterism, we are telling them that this is the way it ought to be. So everybody want to be. How do they want to be? One, let's go back to government. Let's go back to engaging the youth. I would say anywhere, and I believe strongly in this country called Nigeria, we have all it takes. And I believe that if the youth is engaged, properly engaged, we have youths who are, creating, who are doing well, who are, I was speaking to somebody a few days ago, because also we are coming up with something, permit me to mention, Mr. Ayo, called Nigeria Inspires Me. Because I decided to go the opposite direction. If we are looking at what is not working in Nigeria, let us look at what has worked in Nigeria. And then let us take it from that angle. So if I go back to the creative industry, we influenced a lot. Yeah, Nollywood movies and, like today I got educated, sir, that not everything is being censored. A lot of things are out there that are not being censored, so which is giving the cause for alarm for a lot of things going on in the society. You and I have a role to play. We, the creators, have a role to play. We cannot cry foul. We cannot cry, we cannot call the government names when we are not doing our part as well. So it is a joint effort, it's a consortium of efforts that would bring us to where we want to be. I personally think that the creative industry needs to be checked. Musical videos, lyrics, fine, I think it's censored or classified, but at the end of the day, musical videos play a major role. I'm sorry to say this without demeaning the Nollywood industry, sir, ma. I know that the Nigerian musicians, my colleagues, the Wizkids, the Davidos, the Olamides, the Finos, the what's this guy's name, Zazu, and Idamu Adugbo, a lot is going on. My brother here is influenced, look at his hair color, is influenced by my colleagues, which is the truth. You understand? Yes. We are the greatest influencers. So to say that government should not put a check on it, when we ourselves are not putting a check on it, we are asking for, I'm a parent.
Sorry, please, thank you.
I'm a parent. And as a parent, I am scared when I see certain things. There are certain things I don't allow my child to watch or do. There are certain things I don't allow him watch musical videos, even though I know he loves music to a fault. It breaks my heart to stop him from doing that, but I have a duty as a parent to protect his mental state, which a lot of parents are not considering right now. So you see a 14-year-old, 15-year-old boy staying in a hotel for 4 or 5 months, and the parents are not asking him what you're doing there because he's bringing money home. It started from somewhere, an influence. You see a 19-year-old girl bringing stuffs home, and you're not asking her, because he didn't provide it for her, you are not asking questions. We know today that some mothers are responsible for taking their kids to ritualists to help them blow. You understand? But the thing is, in that regard, the mothers have failed. But this is due to an influence, an influx of certain things that is affecting them here. I also believe that Khan has a lot to play because, see, I'm sorry, we hear that this pastor was caught with human head. We hear that this Alpha was caught with human legs. Are there no organizations regulating these religious institutions? So if you are not registered with any religious institution, why should you have a place of worship? This ought to be regulated. Because when you catch the boy, the Yahoo boy or the Yahoo girl, somebody said they should go and bring this thing, right? And then they link it back to Nollywood. I take it back to Nollywood with due respect, sir. I believe, there's so many movies that I can credit this to that has to do with blood money, this and that and this. Not everybody can process information. Some people stop here, some people stop here, some people stop here. And the next thing they feel like, oh, okay, this is the way to go. I was saddened by the 12-year-old boy that was caught kidnapping kids for other people. Look at the 18-year-old boy that killed the girl for rituals. This is, I'm sorry, Facebook are now owned by, Twitter now owned by Elon. I'm sorry, how many rituals did you think they did? It's here, and you all have it, we have it. I know anywhere, there's no way you get to the country today, because I'm well traveled in my field, that you will not meet a Nigerian in that field. What does that say? This brings us back to government. We need to create an enabling environment for us to thrive. Let me end it with this. You cannot be praying for an angel as a wife or a husband when you are creating hell. You won't get what you want. So I would say, with due respect to authority, because I don't want to go prison, with due respect to authority, but I have to speak my mind, and let us go back to the drawing board as government and as a people. Let that reform start from your mindset. And I tell you, we have burnt houses, we have burnt vehicles, we have done all kinds of things, we have protested. What has it gotten us? Let us do it differently. Let us change the narrative so that all of these things can fall in place. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ara. The DG already said that they respect other people more than the artists, because I think what they're engaging in government is, I don't know how many of us speak Yoruba, anytime Mula and Lady Mo. Because the artist is in your view. So you can always, it's the Peking way go school late. 9 teacher they built you. If I no go school, you go beat me. No. So the artist is easy to, Now the Peking way go school now. If I didn't show up in school, will you beat me? You are students now, don't you know? But I'm not encouraging you not to go to school. But I'd like to respectfully bring the human rights lawyer, Mr. Kola Alapinni. I said he's a customer because he's been with us before and we always enjoy his talk. Thank you very much. No, you can use the podium.
Okay, a few misconceptions which I just want to point out. Then I'll give an overview of what everybody has kind of said. First will be my Ebon seated, the director of the Census Board, Mr. Adedayo Thomas. Am I correct? Yes, okay. You can actually defend yourself in court if you're not a lawyer. So far, you've been made aware of the consequences. So because you can defend yourself and not go back home. And so far, you are not representing someone else. Some people are indigent. Some feel they are skilled enough. We've had 1 or 2 law students who are not yet lawyers who could just say, I'll represent myself. And although if it's a criminal offense, the state should provide you with counsel. Okay, so that's the first misconception I wanted to clear. The second one is when you were switching criminal law for capital offenses. Maybe it was a slip of tongue. You were just saying, capital. A capital offense simply means that the penalty is death. Okay. And what I think I was talking about was that defamation ought to be a civil offense. So if, for instance, someone says something against Mr. Lai Mohammed, for instance, and it shouldn't be using the offices, his official office and state powers to challenge that. If he feels offended, he can sue, and under the civil laws. And then Mr. Duker was asking the question: which comes first? Is it the Constitution or the Act? Well, the Constitution is the ground norm. The Constitution is the Constitution supersedes. The Constitution is the foundation. The Constitution is everything. In Yoruba language, I think I cited that proverb the last time. Of the elephant. One of the slogans of the royal family in Lagos is Erin Jogunola, which the Oba Eleko is. I think it's a misconception to call him Oba of Lagos. It's the Eleko of Eko, because some people will challenge us and say Lagos is a much wider. Okay, so the Constitution is the elephant. When it walks through the jungle, all other animals scamper. Although this has been debunked when you watch National Geographic. I see the lions waiting and jumping on the elephant and bringing it down. But that's what's supposed to be. Where any law confronts the Constitution, that law must bow down to the Constitution. So then you should challenge it. It's an act. So acts, I was advising the client a couple of days ago, and the Federal Executive Council made a directive, and I'm not going to go too much, but what they were saying is if we want to come into your state and we want to do a project, you give us the land free, and then we'll do what we want to do. And then the Federal Executive Council was trying to change or subject the Land Use Act to decisions of a few people in the Federal Executive Council. It's not possible. A Federal Executive Council directive cannot supersede the act, which is a law. An act which was made by the National Assembly cannot supersede the Constitution. But these issues are, we have hangovers and we keep running into these sharp corners. Do you know why? Because the Nigerian Constitution itself told a lie against itself when it says we, the people of Nigeria, and that is always the problem, because we don't feel that we belong. We don't feel this was a constitution we made ourselves. So it sometimes can look like an abstract document, although we run to it for protection when we run into a brick wall. So when you now said, when you said that, I thought, I should just quickly write it down, and to let you know, any other law is null and void to the extent of its inconsistency. That's what section 1.3 of the Constitution says. And you can see when we're challenging some state laws and we say we're a union, even if we're unequal, if it's an unequal union, but still we're a union, you cannot make laws at state level that conflicts with what this Constitution binds us all together. So if you want to start exerting, say for instance, I promise I'm not going to go into one of our cases, but take for instance Sharia law. Sharia law is being practiced by 12 northern states. So when you look at the map, say you color the map in blue where they are practicing Sharia law, you can almost slice the country into half. But you want to benefit from the resource control, the derivation of the Niger Delta, the this, the that, which are constitutional laws. This was written into Constitution. Sharia law, as we know it being operated in the North now, is not written into the Constitution. What was written into this Constitution as far as Sharia law is concerned is Islamic personal law, succession, marriage, this, that, and all those which you can also proceed to the Sharia Court of Appeal. When the British amalgamated Nigeria and they wanted to sign this protectorate, there were two kings, two monarchs who were involved. Anyway, I must disclose my interest, but I am an Oyomisi. My family is an Oyomisi. My surname is Alapinni. And, you know, our progenitor, the Alafin for you, signed on the behalf of southern Nigeria. The Alafin of Oyo was recognized as the king of the south, so to speak. And then the Sultan of Sokoto signed on behalf of the Northern Protectorate. When we donated these powers to the British, there was only one way the British would come, would allow some of our laws if they were not repugnant to equity, good conscience, and natural justice. Therefore, you cannot stone someone to death for adultery or for saying something against Prophet Muhammad. The British will not allow it. You cannot kill twins in Calabar, for instance. So all these customary laws, so to speak, and you know, Sharia law, Islamic law is seen as customary law in the North. They say that's their customary law. So you have to remove all this punitive or barbaric, what the British would call barbaric. You have to remove them. And that was the only way we could have a fused law known as Constitution, which of course, you know, there were several debates in the 50s in London. We had some constitutions, and they were reviewed, the Littleton, the Richards, this, and there were so many constitutional conferences in the UK then. So much so that these laws which we are talking about, say these freedoms which we are talking about now, it is also in that constitution that they are not absolute. Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom, these various freedoms. There's a part of the constitution, if you go there, which says these laws are subject to public policy. And public policy is as determined by the government of the day. Okay. I'm just going to quickly run. I don't want to take over the whole floor. Okay, so, and also Mr. Duke, well, if there are questions, I'll be glad to answer. Also, if Mr. Duke made reference to his film, King of Money, I think I was about leaving University of Baden then when, that was 98, yeah. And you said a letter was written to the court, or a court sent a letter. Okay, it wasn't a letter, exactly. That was what I was going to tell you. It wasn't a letter, it will have been a court order. It will have been an injunction. And then you were telling, when I refer to him as the census board, he is the census board. Yes, he's the government here. So when you were now telling the census board, watch it first, do this, it was a wrong procedure. Because your legal advisors will have told you that there's a subsisting court order, and the only way you can vacate it if you go and get another court order. That was what happened then. Who mentioned Agege bread, the issue? Was it Mr. Young? Was it you as well that talked about the Agege bread advert? Yes, Sterling Bank. Okay, and this is where it gets more interesting. This is my personal opinion as an international human rights lawyer. It is hypocrisy for us to say someone said something against Prophet Muhammad, and it is freedom of speech. A certain singer sang something, or someone did a film that criticizes Islam or Prophet Muhammad, and we are championing this freedom of speech, this artistic freedom. You have a right to say anything under the Constitution. So why can't a bank or a copywriter make an advert that says he rose on the third day like Agege bread? Did he not rise? Does Agege bread not rise? Why are we beating ourselves? We cannot appropriate and repropriate. You cannot condemn northern Nigeria for saying, oh, those people in Kano, they're going to stone him to death because he said something against Prophet Muhammad. What did he say? And then we are now saying the advert is blasphemy laws, do they exist in Nigeria? Because that's what we're challenging. Anytime they want to hold someone in the north for blasphemy, we say, no, there's no blasphemy law in the Constitution. Why in the south are we now remembering all of a sudden a certain word called blasphemy when someone drew a picture of Agege bread and something, a figure that rose from the stone, the stone was rolled away? It's hypocritical. It's double standard. Okay, so that was what I. Yes, insensitivity is not illegal. Talk law. It's insensitive. It might be inappropriate, especially for people who take their faiths very seriously. What about people who don't have faiths? Are we going to chase them away from Nigeria? My ancestors only became, on my father's side, they only became Muslims maybe like 100 years ago. And on my mother's side, maybe about the same time, maybe 70, 80 years. Were we not worshiping something before Islam and Christian came? Are all of them going to go to hell? That's what they believed in. That was the order of the day. And that's why we're saying there should be freedom of religion, freedom of be who you want to be. Who is going to judge? How many people do we know who we are going to see in heaven? If there is one. And whose heaven is it? So, whether it's a Christian heaven or a Muslim heaven or a traditional worshipper's heaven or a non-believer's heaven, we don't know, and we should ask fundamental questions. All these things that the colonialists brought in, hook, line, and sinker, and we all swallowed it. This is the bedrock of the problem in Nigeria. So we're talking about the example of the. I also now remember in 2005 I was doing my master's in international human rights law at the University of Essex in England, and there was a crisis that engulfed Europe then, It was popularly known as the Danish Cartoon. So what this gentleman had done in Denmark for a newspaper, he had drawn a supposed image of Prophet Muhammad. He didn't show his face because nobody knew how Prophet Muhammad looks like. But he put a turban there and he put dynamite in the head, presupposing that some people of some faith were known to be suicide bombers. This was about not too long after the London bombings as well, the underground. So it was insensitive. Could we say it was freedom of expression? How do you balance the rights between freedom of expression and the rights to religious freedom? And this was a general seminar question for us. You fail it, you fail the LLM. So you have to decide. What they do, you know, it's very interesting when you school in climes like that. You're not like Nigeria, you ask your professor some questions and the person starts marking you down. In the seminars, you debated it exhaustively and all, and then the problem question came. All they just did was to change the countries and the personalities, but you can see that was it. And they'll tell you, okay, this matter has now come before the UN Human Rights Committee. Decide. And there were no right or wrong answers. What they just want to see is your creativity and you know, contributes to knowledge. And I ruled against freedom of speech. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm a human rights lawyer, but I'm a product of my environment, my country, where I come from, and I balanced it. And you know, it's a multi-religious country. It's a secular, multicultural. We speak over 250 languages here, over 400 tribes. I ruled against it. I said, you know, there's freedom of speech, there's freedom of religion, but, you know, the country is going to burn if you know, don't. I don't want to use the word censor. if you don't. You know, pull a little bit of, you know, pull the rein a bit. Yeah, if you don't exercise restraints, then the country is going to burn. And we have no other country than this one. If you've lived abroad as an immigrant or a student, and you see it's good, there's light, there's water, there's internet, but you are still a stranger. Now imagine being a refugee in another country. The population of Western Nigeria alone, the population of Western speaking, Yoruba speaking states and everything, it's more than the population of the whole of West Africa. If we have a crisis and we just shoot towards the West, like we are going to envelope everybody up to Senegal, Western Nigeria alone here, you know. So, and then I'm going to round up now. I will talk about the sheer influence of Nollywood in Africa. In 2001, we were at Arusha, Tanzania, at the International Criminal Tribunal, and in Kigali as well. I'll give you the example of Arusha and Kigali. Arusha was where you have the tribunal itself sat in Arusha. And we were there for a week. On Sunday, we decided to, it was very intense, whatever. We had to be going to the courts and observing the trials of the people who were being tried for genocide. So on Saturday, it was a bit free, and Sunday, we're going to fly back to Kigali, where you had the administrative facilities of the UN, and we were going to see the genocide sites and all. And interestingly, as we came out of the hotel, the Impala Hotel, I think it was, there's a lot of buzz. You know, on Sunday, it was looking. Every barber shop, we wanted to cut our hair. And we came from South Africa. We were 29 students at the University of Pretoria. So the babes, some of them could make their hair themselves, you know. But every barber shop we went to, including the UN, it's like a joint, like this kind of park, like this. Oh, very busy. You had them doing in Yamachoma, which is like Suya, this. Every shop we went to, and you see children staying outside, peering in. It was showing Nollywood films. Every shop, every barber shop, hairdresser shop, everything they were watching was Nollywood. We have totally obliterated their film culture. So if a boy was to be walking down the streets of Arusha, you'll be mobbed. And they will be, nobody, that's it. That's how powerful it is. And then we went to Kigali. And of course, we went the length and breadth, all towards the Congolese border. We came back. We went to Gitarama, Butare, we went to the university. Everywhere you went to there, apart from genocide site, I think in one stadium, Amahoro Stadium or something, went 50,000 people were slaughtered. And they preserved the bodies. They preserved the bodies. I'm talking 2001, 7 years after the genocide. There were orphans, just like we have our Majiri here. Orphans at the street lights begging for money. Some of them started sniffing glue and all. What happened in Rwanda? Briefly, it was the use of the media, which radio called Millennials or something, radio of 1,000 hills. Kigali is known as the city of 1,000 hills. The radio broadcast, it was the use of the media, freedom of expression, freedom of thought, that was drummed into the people, saying the Tutsis were in Yenzis mean cockroaches, and they kept on drumming it into the head, and they would come into in the radio station. They were speaking in codes before, stamp out the cockroaches, rise up and do this, and that. 1 million people were killed in 90 days, mostly with machetes. They are farmers. They used what everybody could use. It's not everybody that can fire an AK-47. They used husband turns on wives, wives turned on husbands, children on their parents, and they slaughtered themselves. 1 million was killed in 90 days due to freedom of expression, freedom of speech, use of the radio, which probably if they had a censors board that was censoring what they were saying, it wouldn't have snowballed. America couldn't go into Rwanda because they had just chopped a flogging in Somalia, where they were dragging US Rangers on the floor. So Bill Clinton didn't want to go in. There were warnings that this was going to happen. Kofi Annan was DPKO. He was director of the Department of Peacekeeping. The whole world just turned aside. If you excuse my street lingo, let me try and feel among. If Kasala burst in Nigeria and the West is preoccupied with their own issues, the US, did you see what they were doing to us? Black students in Ukraine, we just went to school, we wanted to leave. Did you see another face of racism? When they will say women and children should leave. Women and children, according to them, did not include black people. They were stopping until the president's backdoor channels and everything, and diplomatic channels were sent a plane there to evacuate. We couldn't even get into Ukraine. You had to be through Poland, through this. So I would suggest that we balance this. Finally, I want to use the example of China. China is a very hands-on country. The kind of literature that comes out of the official Chinese government, whatever, if you watch CGTV or whatever, look at the way they are projecting themselves, you would think that all Chinese look like that. That's what they want to project. They won't show you a Chinese man that has a scar or a broken nose that will come on TV. They want to make you think that everything works perfectly. That's not what happened. That's not real life in China. It's not real life anywhere. They're just trying to project their best forward, positive. What are we projecting in Nigeria? What are we projecting in Africa? We must, this is my example. I've been around fairly, schooled in about 4 different countries. We must project Nigeria's image. Otherwise, we will all pay dearly for it. If we go to South Africa, I schooled in South Africa briefly. From the airport, and that these are 2 different scenarios. You know we don't have a national airline anymore. So maybe if South African Airways comes in or Ethiopia or whatever, well, as soon as you sometime, they know you're a Nigerian. Your swagger, the way you carry yourself, they know this one, no be Togolese. We're self-assured. We work assertively. We ask questions. So they know, and some of them respond to you, now, hi, how are you? The next thing they are discussing with you is Hollywood. They are calling Peter Doce, they are calling Igwe, they are calling Uncle, they are calling everybody. and then you go into their country itself, and it's a different ball game because of what the media shows to them. When I first went to South Africa, I was shocked that there was a media blackout. Nobody knew who Sonny Okosu was because he was singing anti-apartheid songs, and the apartheid government would not allow those songs to infiltrate. And I was like, how come? What happened? They didn't know. Because the state had regulated everything and they had to protect themselves. The only people who we could reconnect with, the people who had come to, I went to school with some of them, University of Badar, Federal Polytechnic, University of Jos. The Nigerian government was sponsoring, waiting for apartheid to crumble so that they will go back and take over the reins. I schooled in Jos, by the way, I'm a great Josite as well. So what I'm saying is that we will all pay dearly for this if we don't find a middle way. Yoruba will say, "Boni baba se pe gba e, la nba pe. Bo ba pe gba e ni Ankara náà ni. Bo ba se pe gba re lawo, awo náà wo bo pe." For our non-Yoruba speakers, they say, if you eat with calabash and they come to your house, and your wife says, it's not a calabash, it's porcelain, and treat it as one, as that, then the visitors who come to your house will respect that. But I want to eat, and they brought it in, and somebody is just treating it with disdain. Before they go that day, they will have stamped on that calabash. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, lawyer. I think I can call you Lawyer Alapinni now.
Just Mr. is fine.
It sounds like a title in the village headmaster, Lawyer Alapinni. Thank you very much for, breaking all of this down for us.